Mayor Barrett announces, in consultation with the Director of Public Works, Robert Ward, declaration of a drought emergency in the city effective Wednesday, March 19th. Related communication from the City of Haverhill Water Division.
Mayor Barrett.
Thank you, Council President and councilors. As you all know, we have been suffering from a drought situation in the Northeast here for about 7 months. We did not have an adequate snowfall really to make up for our losses of water, and per a DEP declaration of a level 3 critical drought, and our own declaration in accordance to our water use restriction ordinance, we have reached the point where we are going to call an emergency of water. And I have Bob here to answer any technical questions, but essentially, as you can see in the handout that Bob gave you and in the pieces in your packet, it is obvious we are not where we should be for this time of year.
Thank you. Welcome, Bob. Name and position for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Robert Ward, DPW Director for the City of Haverhill, for the record. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. So as the Mayor stated, we are declaring an emergency drought declaration, declaring an emergency drought situation, I guess I'd say. I'll be brief. I just want to hit on, some of the highlights, and I thought that a PowerPoint to give everybody a visual that's watching the meeting tonight. So by way of background, as the mayor said, it's been very dry for 7 months or so. If you look at the rain records, you'll get September through January. It's the driest 5 months that we have on record in the last 26 years or so. So it's been extremely dry. I don't know, I think if everybody can recall last fall, we had the absolutely beautiful weather all fall, but no rain. So here we are. So the problem is really twofold. It's the low level. It's the lowest level that we have in the last, I don't know if anybody here remembers 1998, 2000. That was the worst in the last 30 years plus. So we're down at that level, maybe even a tad lower. But the other thing that's compounding the problem is the delayed recovery. So normally, as the mayor said, we'll have snow or rain during the winter. We haven't had that. We had an extremely dry January, so we're going to look at the charts of the level. We kind of got off to a false start a month or two ago, and then the rain shut off and we started dropping again. So we're probably a month and a half behind right now on our road to recovery. Next slide, please. So we're not alone. That's the state of Massachusetts, obviously. The orange is the level 3 critical drought. So you can see most of the state is in a similar situation to the city of Haverhill. Level 3, they only have 4 levels, so they're 3 out of 4 right now with what you see there. Next slide. So the city does have a drought management plan. We were required to develop this back, I think, around 2016. I don't know if anybody recalls, but I was here back in 2016 to go through that plan. It was adopted by the city council as a city ordinance in chapter 250. I think I came across the PowerPoint, and I think it was 26 slides, so that was probably a long night. But at any rate, the city adopted the city ordinance in 2016, and basically it defines 4 different levels for the city. We have a drought watch, we have a drought warning. The drought warning, we declared that for Haverhill back in November, and it's voluntary conservation measures. The next level is the emergency, which is mandatory use restrictions, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. And then the critical level. Next slide. So a little bit about our reservoirs right now and where we are with them. We have Canosa Lake, we have Millvale Reservoir, and we have Crystal Lake. We also have Round Pond. That's a very small part of our supply, but it's there. Canosa Lake, just to give you an idea of the volumes, we pumped 2024 was 2.1 billion gallons over the course of the year. 830 million of those gallons came from Millvale, and 266 million came from Crystal Lake. Right now, the current level at Canosa is 104.8 feet. Full is 114.5, so we're about 10 feet lower than we should be. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were kind of, oh, really, we're in a drought? And I said, well, drive by Canosa Lake. So a couple of days later, she came to me and said, wow, I can't believe how low it is. So, and I was looking at it, 2016 was a bit of a drought, and I actually had a photo of Canosa. Canosa today looks a lot worse than the 2016 photo. So, but anyway, we're about 10 feet low. Millvale Reservoir, fortunately, with the snow that we've had, and we've had a little rain recently, Millvale is just about full. Millvale is a relatively small reservoir, so we're able to pump as much as we can pump from Millvale right now. We're estimating we have roughly 3 months of pumping there right now. So that's good, and we'll see the charts in a minute to kind of show you the trend if that remains true. Crystal Lake, John's our water treatment plant manager, by the way, John Doust. He and I took a look out at Crystal today, and the levels here are a little misleading. If you go out there and look at it, it's really lower than what you're seeing with the numbers with the levels here. So that's not going to be ready to pump any water for a while. So that's kind of where we stand right now with our reservoir levels. Next slide. So this is hard to see, but what is it? It's a chart of the lake levels. And each different color is a different year, and it's different drought years. So it goes, you have 1998, 2000, and so on. So these are the typical level trends over the drought years over like the last 25, 30 years. And you can see the trend. So you start in January, and December is to the far right. And you can see the upward trend that for the levels from January through the 1st of May. Usually around the 1st of May is when we top out and we're full at 114, 114.5. And then the demands usually go up in May. Typically Memorial Day weekend is our annual increase in flows. Depending on the weather, if it warms up earlier, we could see that in the beginning of May. So that's where you see the curves kind of level off, and then as you get into the summer, they go down with the increased demands. But what's kind of telling about this chart is if you look down, it's kind of towards the left side, you can see that little number. So that little number is where we are. That's where were a couple days ago. And you can see that little line and how low it was. And you can also see that it's pushed over like a month or a month and a half to the right. So clearly, we're way behind in our recovery right now with Canosa Lake. So next slide. So this is the chart of our different drought zones. So the top, the pale yellow, is the watch zone, followed by the yellowish orange, which is warning, and so on. So you can see that blue line is the lake level for 2025. So you can see that we're clearly in that drought emergency zone. You can kind of see that Trend went down from the beginning of the year, then it started to go up where we got kind of that fall start, and then the rain shut off and we went back down, but the recent rain and the snow melt helped us out quite a bit, so. At least, looking at that, you can see we're at least on the trending upwards right now. So the other thing with this, can you go back just quick? So if you sort of project that line going up, and when I was talking about, 90 days or so of pumping with Millvale, that sort of gets you 3 months in, so you're into April, May, June. So by June, if you project that line, we're up into kind of the watch zone or at the top of the watch zone. So if we continue on the path we have right now, we have a normal spring, we'll be into that drought watch zone, which should be around 112 feet. It's not where we'd ideally like to be, but it's a lot better than where we are now especially. So hopefully this trend will continue. Typically, as I mentioned, we're full around the 1st of May. The projection line with what we're looking at there, where we're normally around 112 on a typical year, even with this trend, we're still only at 108, so we're still 4 feet behind. So we do have a ways to go. Next slide. So what's a drought emergency declaration mean? It's effective tomorrow, March 19th. Non-essential outdoor water use is prohibited at all times. There are some exceptions under Chapter 250. We'll get into that on the next slide. There are some other uses that are subject to review and approval. The big thing is, monitoring the levels and seeing how things go, and, hopefully the weather cooperates. Next slide. So exceptions under Chapter 250 to the outdoor watering ban. Agriculture, businesses that use water for their core functions. So you're talking about like golf courses, plant nurseries, agricultural operations, things like that. And then the other part, irrigation with harvested and stored stormwater runoff. So basically rain barrels that you collect stormwater with. And I will mention that the city does make rain barrels available. We have, if you go on the city's website, it's actually under the recycling webpage. You go on the Rain Barrel Company's website, you pre-order it. The ordering is available until April 13th, and the barrels are scheduled to be delivered on April 26th, and people can pick them up down at the Highway Garage at 500 Primrose Street. The price is $89 for a barrel. The mayor and I were talking about the possibility of maybe giving a discount or some kind of rebate or something off that price of $89. So that's to be determined.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next slide. So subjects, uses subject to review and approval. Irrigation of public parks and recreation fields. One of the other ones the mayor and I were talking about the other day that's not up here is we have a couple of those, at least a couple of those little spray parks, like Swayze Field, those types of things. So we'll have to talk about that. Fortunately, I don't think they open up till probably late June because of the weather, so that gives us some time to think about those types of things. Newly planted lawns, replanted, resodded lawns, and some other things. The other one, handheld hose or drip irrigation, some things like that. So. The other part of it is, so we talked about outdoor use. So indoor use, so we're urging people to conserve water indoors as well. The first thing is check and fix leaks in your faucets, toilets, things like that. I will also add, and I see this all the time, I participate in the Water Sewer Abatement Board meetings, and I see how much money leaks can cost people. And it's shocking how much, you could have a toilet leak over a period of time that's literally thousands of dollars. So not only is finding the leaks and fixing them important, but it's gonna save potentially a lot of money for you, so. Other things, run dishwashers, washing machines only on full load, shorter showers, low flow shower fixtures and faucet fixtures. We do provide free water saving fixtures at the billing office for showers and faucets, so those are available. I think we're pretty well stocked up on those right now. I checked the other day. Use a commercial car wash, where they're typically recycling the water. And as I said, shower heads and faucets available at the water billing office. Those are no charge. So, that's it.
Thank you, Bob. Councilor McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bob, what's this do to our revenue projections?
Hopefully not much right now. We're coming to the end of the fiscal year, and hopefully, because of the weather, not too many people are going to be watering. So hopefully the timing for the end of fiscal '25 is minimal. But for '26, we're actually looking at the usage forecast and sort of tweaking that usage down.
Okay. And then, I forget the year, was it 2016 or 17 for the? 16. For the wells adjacent to the Merrimack? Where does that all stand and what's that look like and?
So right now, we've done a lot of the permitting. I have an agreement that's not signed on my desk for the engineering to do the design and bid for the actual well. One of the big hurdles right now is the property. We've been wrangling with the property owner for quite a few years now and trying to work with this person, and we were very close to an agreement, purchase and sale, all that, and she decided to change to another attorney, and they came back with a 2 or 3 page list of, we'll say, comments. So right now, we're going through those and see where we're at. Given the time and given the circumstances, you know, I actually mentioned to the mayor the other day, you know, whether the city would entertain eminent domain. We have been working with the property owner, you know, in a friendly way. It's, you know, obviously, they would rather not be in this situation, but the property was perfect for a Randy collector well, which is what we're gonna be putting in. And like I said, we've tried to do in a friendly way and tried to work things through and all that, but we're kinda, right now, we thought we got over the hump, but kinda maybe hitting a little bit of a wall right now, so.
So what year was that we approved that? Was that 16?
No, that was
There's a loan order.
probably before that.
So there was a loan order?
Yeah, there's an
17
approved
million.
loan order ready to go.
And so how much of that, what have we spent so far?
Oh, probably,
Because with debt
About-
service, I think back then we were thinking, by the time this is done, this is gonna be 22, 23
yeah,
million.
most of the money to date, if not all of it, has been from the water supply fee that we collect for new development.
So we,
They won the 1.5 million neighborhood.
okay, so we haven't really,
This
Taking
loan
that
order, the
loan,
loan
yeah.
order approved several years ago, we have not tapped that
okay,
yet.
okay,
We will be for this design.
okay.
Yeah.
And is it just one well?
Yes.
Okay.
So what it is, it's not a typical well. It's called a Ranny collector well. It's a 16 or 8-foot diameter concrete caisson that you sink vertically into the ground 70 or 80 feet down. And then, you know, a typical well, a steel, sort of a pipe, and then it's got the screens. So instead of a vertical screen and well, you have these, it's sort of like 5 fingers of your hand. So the concrete caisson vertically down, and those well fingers go out like the fingers of your hand out underneath the river. And they're probably, John, 70 feet under the bottom of the river. It's roughly 60 to 70 feet under the bottom of the river. So you get that filtering effect from the soil, from the water.
So
So
this
that's
is
what that
just
is.
still years away.
No, could be less than 2 years. So I talked with our engineer the other day. He said, we got going on the design today. They could have the design and bid ready for the well by late fall, early winter. That bids it out, that gets a contractor on board, and then I think it's probably, I would say a year to a year and a half tops for construction of the well.
And then we have
And
to
at
find.
the same time, we'd be putting out a contract for the pipeline too.
Okay, and,
We've done a lot of the engineering on the pipeline already.
okay. And have any of the regulations changed? You're only, or we are, as a city, are only allowed so much that you can pump from there. Is that still
Yeah, that's
What are the conditions?
DEP, yeah, they're well aware of the project.
but I didn't know if those numbers have changed. I mean,
No, we'll probably, they're probably not gonna, they call it, firm yield, safe yield, whatever you wanna call it, which is our ceiling for withdrawal. They probably would not increase that, but nor do we need an increase in that number, because our number right now is like 7.1 million gallons a day, and we're well below that.
okay, and so in anticipation for that, if we do get that online, this doesn't have to happen anymore, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay, all right, thank you.
makes perfect sense.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Ferrera.
I have a bunch of questions. Specifically, I guess, about when these different levels are triggered locally. Are we going by our standards for how low the water levels are that we determined as Haverhill, or is it a state guidance that we follow?
So I believe there's guidance, but we developed the plan.
Okay.
And the plan and those levels where you see there, those levels,
Yep.
those are based on our historical levels for the reservoirs.
And then that was last updated with the chapter 250, you said, in 2016? Would that have
I
been in
believe it was
there?
adopted in 2016, yeah.
Okay.
So that's
I'm-
when that graph was developed.
Right. I'm curious if weather trends since 2016, to me, we haven't rebounded really well in a long time with watershed levels in the area, I feel like. Do you think there is a more reason in the last few seasons of less rainfall and less snowfall and warmer weather and all of that to look at what our critical levels are so we get out ahead of this potentially in the future and trigger it earlier?
Something we could take a look at, certainly something to think about. Yeah, as weather's changing, things like that.
Okay, great. Well, that was one question. And then I had a question from some constituents who are curious about if these lower levels are more than just the weather call on this, and is it due to all of the development in the city that our water levels are so critically low right now?
There's more development in this. There's development in the city. Obviously, they use water. Yeah.
And so
So
would-
I mean, I don't think I would. Mother Nature is a powerful force, and I would say it's mostly Mother Nature.
Oh,
Yeah.
I agree as
Yeah.
well, but I would be curious if that would be maybe something you could bring to us in the future, is to see what our usage trends look like as more and more housing units come online. I get that question a lot about
Yeah.
what is the impact to this kind of stuff in our city, and I trust that you guys know what you're doing, and we have plenty, and we're doing what we should to make sure we have plenty of everything and everything's working beautifully. But that, I got that quite a few times in the last few days. And then can you just, I want to do a plug for rain barrels. I love my rain barrel. It's great. I'm going to get another one. They're really great. They last a long time. They fall over. They don't crack. Highly recommend. And when you say no outdoor watering, specifically, your lawn sprinkler systems aren't going to be turning on. Can we
That's correct.
hand water our gardens with our garden hoses and watering cans?
That's one of the exceptions, so we'll be taking a look at those exceptions.
Okay, and
I
then,
think we need to kind of keep an eye on the levels. I think we have, doing this now, I talked about in May, that's when people start to really get outside and use the water outside. So we're March 19th, so that gives us a little time to really think about these types of things, as well as watch and see what the weather's gonna bring and where the levels are, so.
for some of us gardening folks, March is forecasted to be warmer than it has been in a very long time. So I think some of us are pushing and raring to go for watering. So I bet that would be a question soon for some of us home gardeners with our early peas and things like that. When you get more specifics about what is exempted or not, will that be available on the website for us to check?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I
It will
would think,
come here too.
It will come to city council?
We'll just
Okay.
to-
Well, it goes into effect tomorrow, so I didn't know
But
what the timing would be.
Details, more details, we'll come back to you, just so
Great.
more people can know.
Yeah.
It will be on the website too, but
Okay.
just to keep you guys abreast and the general public
Great,
that watch these meetings.
yeah,
I hear there's a lot of them.
big crowds. I think that's everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Basileir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Wood, you might recall a number of years ago, I sat in on a meeting about this very well. If you don't remember, that's fine. But we were with the homeowner, members of the Conservation Commission, the conservation agent, yourself. I also toured down there. The point I want to bring up, I'm glad that Council McGonigal directed our attention to East Broadway. If I remember correctly, sir, isn't it true that over the 117-mile course of the Merrimack River, there is a geological feature that happens only twice, which allows this type of technology in Manchester and off of East Broadway? Is that correct, sir?
I know that we will be the second Randy collector on the Merrimack. I don't know enough about the geology of the river to
Okay.
really comment on it.
Okay, so I am confident with my memory that I would enter for the record that there is a geological feature that happens twice that I don't know the name of, in the course of the 117-mile river. And my point being is, the city did not draw this address's name out of a hat. We're coming and knocking for a reason. My bigger point, sir, having been involved in this for in some level for a number of years, is I would just enter for the record tonight for my colleagues that I am very much in support of us taking this from eminent domain. We have a lot of people to worry about, and water is a critical service. I want to be very clear that I am in support of taking this property by eminent domain should the city go that way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lewandowski.
Yeah, just quickly, just to wrap up, Bob, just so, the exceptions under Chapter 250 have to do mostly with businesses and them being able to use water, like for fairways and agriculture and so forth. But the next page in your slide that had to do with uses subject to review and approval, that seems more geared toward the independent homeowner, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's-
so it says here, you can, so basically the way I'm reading this is that you can still water your lawn if you use a handheld hose, correct?
That's if we do the exceptions. Right now, it's all out prohibited, but I think the mayor is thinking maybe some exceptions. So we can talk a little bit more about those.
So how, when you say prohibited, and I hope that there are maybe a few exceptions, although I am obviously in support of taking these measures based on the level that we're at. how is that enforced exactly? Are people, like, if, I think people would like to know.
Good
You know what I
question.
mean? Does
Good
someone just
question.
roll up from the city and like take, give someone a fine, or are they just warned the first time and so forth? Because I would expect, I mean, we're right in the beginning of the season. If this continues, it's gonna be a fluid, pardon the pun, situation.
Yeah.
So, some of the exceptions might make sense now, but might not make sense later. And then what can people expect in terms of enforcement?
So the city code allows for, its first offense is a warning.
Okay.
Second offense, I believe, it's either $25 or $50 for the second offense, and then the third offense and beyond are either 50 or 100.
Okay, thank you. So there are
It's an
fines.
escalating fine, and each day is a new offense. So each day they can be fined. It also, the code also allows for the shut-off of water too, for non-compliance.
I see. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you. That's all I
Thank
have.
you, Councilor Lewandowski. I don't see any other lights on. Thank you for the announcement, even though it's not great news. I, for one, will be praying for rain, and it looks like we do have some more rain coming Friday as well as next week. So let's hope that we get into a rainy pattern this spring so we can get out of this emergency. Thank you both.
Thank you.